There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing.
Look, I don't really like the term woke because I think it's an umbrella term that I'm not 100% sure I even know what it means.
Here's what I told Bob. I said, I'm curious, Bob, don't you think messages like this is why Disney keeps having box office flops? If I'm Bob Iger, you know what we're doing? Emergency meeting. We're putting Snow White on hold for 2 years, and guess what?
Smart.
Pay her a couple $1 million, go away. We're going to bring another person to play this role.
Okay, it's great. I'm honored. I don't know why I sound so angry right now. I'm honored. Am I a psychopath?
She's just not stable.
What happens when a Disney princess goes off script, literally, and takes the entire studio down with her? This isn't just a story about a bad movie. It's about corporate chaos, creative ego, fan rebellion, and how one actress may have helped sink the most powerful brand in Hollywood history. Let's talk about how Rachel Zegler went from Disney's rising star to the face of one of its biggest flops ever.
Please?
For which movie?
I've been getting a lot of questions about, how do I feel? I feel amazing.
Once upon a time, Disney had a surefire recipe for success. Take a classic everyone loves, give it a glossy modern makeover, cast a rising star, and watch the box office print money. That was the plan with Snow White, and at first, it made sense. This was their first princess, their first full-length animated film, a piece of cinematic history, reborn for a new generation. The buzzwords were flying: diverse, empowering, fresh. The execs were practically toasting champagne before filming even wrapped.
I just wanted to go on this little baby rant about Rachel Zegler. She's the young woman that was cast as Snow White, not because she can't keep her mouth shut. I'm totally fine with with the celebrities telling me what their politics are, who they're voting for, etc., etc. We've become accustomed to that. But because she has this underlying anger and hatred in her that always has to take it one step too far.
Enter Rachel Zegler. She had the momentum, the spotlight, and a reputation for being bold. After her breakout in West Side Story, people thought she had the charm and presence to lead a fairy tale revival. Disney saw her as the perfect symbol for their evolved Snow White, but behind that fairy tale optimism was a storm brewing. As early leaks started surfacing, new plot points, bold script rewrites, a tone that was very un-Disney, fans started raising eyebrows. Could this reboot actually ruin a legacy? The excitement began to shift. Concerns started to creep in, and the studio, whether they knew it or not, had just stepped on a landmine.
Controversies surrounding Disney's Snow White remake show that we are still in the thick of the culture war. And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Rachel Zegler didn't wait for the critics. She brought the fire herself on social media, in interviews on red carpets. From the jump, her tone was less, "I love Snow White," and more, "I'm here to fix what's broken." But was anything really broken? She criticized the 1937 original, calling it outdated, backwards, and problematic. She dismissed the idea of a love story as weird. She made it clear, this Snow White wasn't going to be some damsel waiting around for a man, which in theory cool. Modern spins can work, but the way she said it, that's where the trouble began.
Well, like me, who watched Disney princess movies when the world was okay and it was acceptable for us to dream about being a princess as a woman and meeting a handsome prince. But oh no, these big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous.
Her delivery came off smug, dismissive, even hostile to the very character she was portraying. Instead of showing reverence for the legacy, she mocked it. And when people pushed back, she doubled down. No apologies, no softening, just more fire. Fans weren't sure whether to call her a trailblazer or a torch wielder. Was she reimagining Snow White or burning it down? And hey, while we're here, do you think Rachel went too far? Or was she just telling it like it is? Sound off in the comments, smash that like button, and hit subscribe if you want more deep dives like this.
And, other movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
This is where things went from awkward to dangerous. Insiders say Rachel wasn't just acting in the film, she was shaping it. Sources claim she gave feedback, suggestions, and even pushed for major script changes. Not tweaks, not minor updates. We're talking full-on rewrites, plot shifts, character reworks, dialogue cleansed of anything problematic. And here's the kicker, Disney listened.
As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look. God forbid a woman dream about true love. We're all just sitting around here, maybe I could be president one day. I hate men, I just want to be president. That screams Disney princess. Oh my God, I'm literally getting enraged. Once again, I feel like I'm back in 2022.
Bob Iger himself later admitted that changes to the story were influenced by Rachel's feedback. That's huge. When a billion-dollar brand lets its lead star help steer the script of one of its most iconic properties, the stakes skyrocket. Suddenly, Rachel wasn't just the actress playing Snow White, she was the architect of what Snow White had become. Some called it bold, others called it reckless. Fans of the original were furious. The sentiment? Who gave her the keys to the castle? And that frustration only grew once people realized how much of the classic charm had been stripped out and replaced with commentary.
This is sort of strange. And so this bizarre fixation with race shifting everything, but only in one direction by Disney, obviously is quite strange. That is the least of the concerns.
Lead actresses Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot are making it very, very difficult for me to believe that there's anything redeeming about this project.
Disney, realizing they might have a problem, leaned hard into the PR machine. Big trailers, glossy photo shoots, and talk show tours were rolled out like armor against the mounting backlash. The tone of the campaign was desperate but hopeful. Look at how beautiful this movie is. Isn't the production stunning? Don't you love that dress? But behind the smiles was tension.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
Rachel's interviews became a high-risk game of roulette. One second she was charming, the next she was throwing shade at the very foundation of Disney's fairy tale brand. At one point, she laughed off the prince as a stalker and said her Snow White wouldn't be waiting for anyone to save her. Modern, maybe, but the internet wasn't buying it. YouTubers, bloggers, and pop culture critics pounced. Clips went viral. Fan edits comparing the old Snow White to the new one painted a brutal contrast. One filled with innocence and heart, the other perceived as bitter and angry. The fairy tale dream was cracking. The red carpets weren't saving it.
So yeah, my agent would have punched me in the face if I was up there saying some stupid what an investment.
I never wanted to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have.
If Disney thought they could smooth things over with a little daytime charm offensive, they were dead wrong. Rachel's live appearance on The View was meant to be a turning point, a chance to reframe the narrative, clear up misconceptions, and maybe even win back a few hearts. Instead, it detonated like a PR bomb.
She did it and got like millions of views, and they were like, good job, Rachel. And then she, like, minutes later followed it up with, and never forget, free Palestine. This is just like a few months after 10/7.
So it just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. Kind of like Society on Liberalism.
Midway through, Rachel went rogue. She started talking politics, personal beliefs, things Disney had explicitly told her to avoid. Co-hosts scrambled to bring the conversation back to the film. Rachel kept pushing. Producers reportedly tried to intervene off camera. Tension exploded behind the scenes. Moments later, the segment was cut short. Rachel was gone. Just like that, the fallout was instant. Twitter exploded. The media had a field day. Headlines read like horror stories. Zegler derails Disney damage control, and the View segment becomes PR catastrophe. This wasn't just an awkward interview. It was a full-blown disaster that exposed just how fractured the relationship between Disney and its lead actress had become.
And it's been interesting casting because this woman is extraordinarily woke, as everyone is in Hollywood, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
They've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now, and how they had her tweet out like a little, yay, Snow White, can't wait, so excited, I love to play her.
You know things are bad when even Gal Gadot doesn't want to get involved. Gal, cast as the evil queen, was expected to bring star power and balance to the cast. But as Rachel's controversy stole the spotlight, Gal disappeared from the conversation. No strong public defense, no joint interviews, just radio silence. Some say she was protecting her brand. Others suggest she was just as skeptical about the direction of the film. Either way, her absence said more than any statement could.
It's wrong and backwards, and it's not 1937, whatever. That was like her initial spree, and everyone was like, okay, do you want to be Snow White or do you hate Snow White? Do you want to destroy Snow White?
I think it's fair to say that no one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
You've just been living in Hollywood, La La Land for so long that you're just deranged. And Rachel decides to go on really just a psychopathic, demented rant.
Meanwhile, Bob Iger's earlier comment, admitting the script had changed because of Rachel, was coming back to haunt him. That one line confirmed to critics and fans that the creative decisions weren't just Disney's. They were driven by one actor's agenda. Internally, panic spread. Departments pointed fingers. PR blamed production. Production blamed Rachel. And some blamed Bob Iger himself, saying he never should have let a young actress with little experience drive changes to $1 billion property. Who do you blame? Rachel? Bob? The writers? Drop your take in the comments. And if this saga's got your jaw on the floor, don't forget to subscribe.
Like there's a lot of this going on. And I want to switch arenas here to Hollywood, although it's kind of indistinguishable at this point, politics and Hollywood. But the Rachel Zegler activity with this Snow White movie has been so insufferable and so narcissistic.
When the box office numbers finally came in, it was like watching a plane crash in slow motion. All that hype, all that marketing, all those millions, gone. Opening weekend was a disaster. Theaters were half empty. Word of mouth was brutal. Rotten Tomatoes scores barely scraped the surface. And across social media, a new phrase started trending: box office poison. Ouch.
And, other movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
So the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
Parents said the film felt preachy. Kids were bored. Longtime Disney fans felt betrayed. Critics slammed it as confused, disjointed, and tone-deaf. Somewhere in the chaos, someone at Disney decided enough was enough. The film was yanked early from theaters and rushed onto streaming. A quiet exit, like a magician sweeping their failed trick under the rug. Disney was clearly hoping the internet would move on, but the damage was done. And the memes? Endless.
And we're sick of it. We're sick of this bullshit. This is what you're getting. So the more you do this, Disney, Iger, what is this girl's name? Rachel Zegler, whatever her name is. Yes, this is exactly the backlash you're going to get from parents.
The fallout wasn't just bad, it was historic. Bob Iger stepped down. Publicly, it was framed as a planned transition, but insiders whispered that Snow White was the final straw. Disney's confidence was shaken, and so was the industry's. Executives scrambled behind closed doors to figure out what went wrong. Was it the casting, the messaging, letting the film turn into a culture war battlefield?
The path that I'm taking right now is the path that Rachel Zegler should have taken instead of just running her mouth for the last 3 years.
Rachel, for her part, stayed mostly quiet. No more interviews, no more unscripted rants. But the damage to her brand was already done. She was now more famous for what went wrong than anything she'd done right. Internally, Disney began revisiting all future remakes. New rules were drafted about how much input stars could have. PR teams were told to vet every talking point with military precision. And quietly, other upcoming reboots were pushed back, some indefinitely. And hey, if you've stuck with us this far, you're clearly invested in the drama. Show some love by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing for more deep dives into Hollywood's biggest implosions. This wasn't just a bad reboot. It was a full-blown Hollywood cautionary tale. It's what happens when studio nostalgia, corporate strategy, and a passionate but polarizing star collide in the worst way. Rachel Zegler may have had good intentions. Maybe she really did want to update Snow White for a new generation. But the execution? A disaster. And when Bob Iger admitted the story had been reshaped around her vision, it confirmed everything fans feared. Disney thought they were rewriting a fairy tale. Instead, they triggered a nightmare. Because in today's world, even the most powerful studio on earth isn't immune to a little self-sabotage.